Yes, it's me, your chef again. Now, in the last episode, we got to cover some basics where we actually dealt with what is Kotlin and everything you need to know about the basics of Kotlin. We talked about functions, we talked about variables, and then we said that simply a variable is just a container. In today's episode, we move from the basics where we are learning from the browser to building in Android Studio. We'll be building our first app. So we will be moving from writing things on the browser, and we start now building things using our integrated development environment. They call it the IDE. This is just like your microwave or your cooker, where you want a tool that has everything assembled in one place, where you can just put in your ingredients and your dough and get the cake. So Android Studio allows us to actually get everything in one place and build that up. So we start off by understanding the basics of Compose. And once we've understood the basics, we want to build our first app. And by the way, we will be building, surprise, a birthday card app. So so apart from building the basics, we want to actually run this app on a physical device, just like this one. And what you just need is a device and a cable. And more or less, if you don't have a physical device, we will be using a virtual phone called the Emulator. So we get to build along multiple apps where we get to build the Compose article, you get to build the business card app, you get to build the Compose Quadrant, and your task manager. And in this series, also, it's important that you get to a basic understanding of Git. And don't worry, you know why? We have another course on Git and GitHub. If you're new to Android, refer to our previous unit where we discussed the basics needed. And so, I have my gift. Just need that app, and we'll be good to deliver our first app in Android Studio that actually runs in your physical device. So, let's get to build the apps. Yes, so welcome back to our pathway 2, where we get to now start building things up using the Android Studio. So if you want to watch the documentation, if you want to go through the documentation, you can always go through here. But for our main focus on this one will be installing Android Studio, creating a first app, running it on Emulator, and connecting it on your device. So if you just type in Android Studio, it's going to redirect you to this Android developers page where you would want to download and install your Android Studio. So that page will load and you can install the latest. So as of 2026, the latest is Android Studio Panda 4. And the amazing thing now is we do have AI, which we will be using later to just make sure that we can speed up our mobile development journey. We now do have the CLI, where you can just type in the commands and get your application up and running. We do also have Gemini, we do have other AI. So we will talk about how do you speed up your mobile development journey with directly with using AI. So you can download one according to operating system, whether you're using Mac or you're using Windows. So go download that and click on install. So if you need to watch a video of how to do so, just go directly here and kickstart here on this code lab here. So just take the code lab and do the installation. So once you've installed your Android Studio, so we're just going to open it up and pick up the rest from here. Yes, so I've already downloaded my Android Studio and configured it up. So I think the setup now is just easy. So it doesn't really need to take time. So I'm going to create a new project. So just click, if you're already on an open project, you can click on File and then go to New Project, and then you will be redirected to this place. So you can select an empty Compose activity. So just click on this one, click on Next, and let's name our application as maybe Hello World. Yes, so for this we have the package name. So this will be among your unique identifiers. So you can leave the minimum SDK as the default selected one. We will talk about them later. And just leave the rest as it is. So for this one, you can change the location where you want to save your project. So this will be the storage location within your computer. So and just click on finish. So once you click on finish, it's going to take a few minutes to sync. That means downloading dependencies and everything else. Depending on your internet speed, it might take a while Yeah, but once it's done, then we should be able to go through these the auto-generated sample code by Android Studio. So I'm just going to increase the appearance here. So I'm just going to make this 15, apply, and then also just make the font size to 16. Yes, and then click on OK. Now, once this is finished, so we have different layouts. So your Android Studio might be different from mine, but basically what is constant is on this pane here, we have the project level where your project directories and everything sits. So as you can see here, if I expand on my app, my Kotlin, so you see everything, anything related to my project is stored here. And then on the middle pane, we do have the code pane where your code base sits. And on this other left side, we do have where your emulator, your device sits, your AI agent. So if you need to complete tasks using AI, so you can use this pane here. But we will focus on these other panes later on. So I'm just going to click here and refresh. So for this, I would want to see a preview of what is here. So a preview is just a snapshot of what is happening here. So as you can see, we now have Hello Android. So the first exercise would be, we've already created our first app. So the next thing would be change. Just let's first understand this. So remember, in our main in our code base, where in our Kotlin Playground, main was the entry point of the application. But on this end now, we do have this auto-generated code by Android Studio. So this is the entry point of our application. So we do have functions like set content. So of course, this is a function, but given that it doesn't take anything here, so we can omit that. So we have this set content, which now is the entry point of the application. So don't mind about all the noises going on here, but just remember that on create is the entry point of your application, just like main. So I'm going to just minimize this a little bit there. So of main importance and focus is this function here. So remember, we talked about the fun keyword used to define functions. Of course, it's actually in the greeting name. So you might be wondering why we are not following the camel case naming here. So welcome to Compose. And in Compose, a composable function should start with a capital letter. This is, of course, it's Kotlin, but this is now a composable function. So going forward, all your composable functions, and you will note that they are annotated with Compose. So Compose, again, is your modern UI toolkit for building your mobile apps. And just remember again, composable functions, just like any other function, can take parameters. So we have modifiers and everything. So don't worry about the modifier. Just know that the modifier would help you design or just add some ingredients or just beautify your Compose. Maybe you want to change the background up, you want to change how your text looks like, you want to add some little spacing. We will be using a modifier. As you can see, it has a default value for the modifier. So we also have a text composable here. So anything you see on your mobile that contains characters or letters or anything, that is a text. And as you can see here, we're saying hello and name. So we are passing in this name here. That's why we have hello and name. So we've also called this greeting. So we've called this function here, and we are saying hello and name. So for our name here, we've passed Android. So that's why you're seeing on your preview here, we have hello Android. Now, another thing to note here is we have preview. Of course, as you can already tell, it's a preview. It's how will the end product look like. So this is just a snippet of how your final app or what you want to expect on your emulator, which is a virtual device, just like your phone, of which we will be going to next to that. How do you run this app on either an emulator or your device? Yes, so again, we are calling this here greeting. So this is what will now go to your mobile app. So don't worry about the values here, padding values and everything else. So first, let me just walk you through how to create a virtual device or an emulator so that we can now run before changing anything and see how your application would look like. Or maybe we can do that later. So we can just go to, if you go to on your far right, we have this device manager. So I'm just going to expand it here. So there's the plus icon here, and then you can go and say create a virtual device. So as you can note, I already have a device here. So that's why it's showing Pixel 8 Pro on my emulator. But if you don't have, if you're starting off, you won't find any. So I'm going to take, let's say I want to take Pixel 10. So I'm going to take anything that has a Play Store enabled here, or we can just work with Pixel 9. Click on next. It's going to ask you to give it a name, and then it's going to show you how your preview will look like, the system and everything. And just click on finish. You can give it your own name. If you click on finish, it's going to take a little bit to download that, and then it's going to show you here once it's done. So this will work best if your computer has quite a good number of RAM or power to do that. So if you have your Android phone, you can still use the same. So for me to start this emulator here, I can just click play here or use this one here. So if I click on this play icon, it should be able to spin up my emulator. So I would just go to the running device, or it can automatically just pop up. So as you can see now, we have Hello Android running. So the next thing could be how do you run it in your physical device? So let's work under assumption that this is my physical device. You will need to go to your settings. Just come here, settings. Then just scroll and go to, I think it's on about. Yes. So you scroll down, go to look for build number. Yes. On your physical phone. Just click on it 7 times. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. You can see it saying you are now 3 steps to being a developer. Click again, and again. So it says I'm now a developer. So if I go back, now I should be able to see developer options. So I'm just going to go back here and just look now for developer options. Just go back again. I think it should be on, let me just search. Developer options. So if I now click on developer options, I can see it's enabled. So the other thing you would want to look to make sure it's enabled is USB debugging, because you will need a USB to connect your computer to your phone. So for example, let me just find a cable here and connect it to my phone. So if I now connect my phone, yes, so it will prompt you to allow this. I'm just going to click allow, and then on my phone it's saying allow USB debugging. So I will just say always allow and click on allow. As you can see now, my phone I have 2 phones, my original phone, that's Oppo, and my emulator. So if I go to device manager, I should be able to see my phone here, and I can select to run the app on my phone. So what I can do here is just add, just go to device, and then I can add this one here. Just acknowledge, and you should be able to see my phone. Yes, so this is my phone. If I do now run the application, it should be able to launch on my phone. So just give it a second. Yeah, this is my phone. As you can see, it's launching. And you can see Hello Android. Yes. So for me, I would be using the emulator. So if you feel that your machine is not powerful enough, just use the emulator to use your phone to run. So for me, I'm running on MacBook, M4. So just make sure that your laptop can run your app without struggling. So I'm going to disconnect this and just continue with what we had before. Now, the first thing I would want us to do is just spice this text a little. Just spice this text a little bit more. So, for example, let's say I want to change this. So instead of hello Android, I would want to say hello Teams with an exclamation. So if the change doesn't reflect here automatically, you can always come here and reload the changes. So you can see now it's saying hello teams. So if I run it on my phone, you can see, yes, exactly. It's still saying hello Android because the only place I changed this was on the preview. Remember, preview is not what is drawn on the application. So I need to make that change here. So you can say hello teams and an exclamation. Run my application. And I'm expecting now we're saying hello teams. That's a good progress indicator. So remember, we talked about modifiers. Now I want to introduce to something called containers in Android. So we do have a row, column, a service. So this will help us arrange how our text will be placed, how our images or a button or the search will be placed within your app. So just double click on this text, then you should be able to get this yellow pop-up. So you can select on surround widget and then surround with a container. So if you just look here, you shouldn't get any difference, but I want you to replace this with service. So you can type in service. Yes. So if you double click this and you don't get the pop-up directly, so what you can just do is remove this, just come here and type in service, and then so remember it has opening and closing a curly bracket. So just make sure you've closed it. You've closed this. So just make sure that everything here is inside the service. So if you click on this, you're able to see this is the starting point and this is the ending point. So everything, the text should be inside here. Now, what I want you to do is, I want us to change the color of this. I don't want, color white doesn't really look amazing. So we have parameter called color. So if you type in color, Android Studio automatically gives you that suggestion. If you hover your mouse around here, we have this color type. So just type color with capital C, press enter, then dot, we can have cyan one. And then just come in, refresh here. You can see now it has changed there. So if you need to change it to color red, just type in red, and then come here and refresh. You can see we are changing it to red, but I prefer to go with the cyan one. Refresh, and that's it. So if you get an error while you are typing this, so remember, we don't want the color with the opening and closing bracket. We don't want something like this. No, we just want to use the color.sand here. So as you can see, this is already changed. So if I run my app now, I expect we see now it's hello teams with this the background of the sun color. So let's say I want to add some spacing here. Now, just like anything, measurements have units. So in Android, we do have density independent pixels, that's DP, and SP. So if you need to add a spacing or anything to do with space, we are going to work with DP, density independent pixels. So later on, we will work with something called font size. If we need to increase the size of this text, we will use something called SP. So for our case here, a modifier, as we've defined here, takes in a default modifier. But if you hover your mouse, if you study well about modifiers, they have a parameter called padding. So in Android, we use padding to add space. We can add space from top to bottom, left, that is right, and at the end. But for our case, we want to add a space padding of 24.dp. So let's refresh and see what kind of impact it has. As you can see now, it has added space on top, left, bottom, and right. Yeah, so if we only wanted to add space on top and bottom, so we can say here, top, and then give it a comma. So it takes in multiple parameters and bottom. So let's add another bottom of 24 dp. Then we can refresh now. As you can see, it has only added space on top and bottom. So it hasn't added any space on the start and the end. So to add space all around, you don't need to specify. You don't need to say all equal to 24.dp. This will work, but by default, if you don't specify all, Android Studio automatically works on the assumption that you mean add space around my text. So let's run it and see what will happen. As you can see, now we have more space around this. So we've now learned how to install Android Studio. We've worked with, you are now familiar with how the Android Studio looks like. We know this is the project, this is the code, this is the preview, and this is where your device sits. We've also seen how do you install the device, and how do you run, how do you change the color, how do you add some little space, and we've talked about the service as one of the containers that we will be using in our next course. So for the next for the next pathway, that is pathway 3, that will be the last pathway for our unit 1. We want to now start building real apps, and we'll be building the birthday card and along other applications. So let's get started. And congrats, by the way, for reaching this point, the preview. So the only thing I would want you to remain with is this one. So that is the scaffold. Everything else is the same. So don't mind about this error. We'll fix the error later on. So here we want to create a function, a composable function. So that's why we'll always have to start with composable and then function. So if you ideally if you type in fun and press enter, or I will show you the shortcut later. So function, so let's call it greeting text, and then of course the opening and closing brackets, and then the curl brackets. So up to that point, everything is you've successfully defined your composable function. So the next thing I would want you to do is to call this function, just copy it inside the hello world theme. For the preview, just make sure you've called it correctly. On calling this, you will need to include the brackets. So the same thing I'd want you to do is to call the same function on the main entry point for this the main entry point of our application. So if you over your text here, of course, it's recommended. In Android, it's recommended that you pass modifier as your first default parameter. So we're going to assign a default value here. So we're just going to say modifier. And then if you hover your mouse here, it's expecting a modifier. And we will learn more about the scaffold and everything else. So for now, what I want you to do is to just come here and say, because we're expecting a modifier, and here is another modifier, just type in modifier equal to modifier.padding. So remember we talked about padding as adding space and everything else. Just do the inner space padding. So this is what we will be doing for default for other projects. We'll be starting off from scratch. So we will talk about this scaffold later in the course. Just know that we've defined this composable function here and the modifier here. And in calling this, we will need to pass in this inner padding. So what this does is, so if you look at your phone, we have the top bar where we have the battery, the date, and everything else. It makes sure that if you launch your app, if you look at the preview now, it misbehaves. So if we say show system UI and turn it to true, and then just scroll it here on the preview, so we can add a simple text here and say hello Android. Just want to show you something. You see now it's going beyond the system bus. It's already obscuring the time here. So by using the inner padding, we are trying to avoid for content or our text going beyond the system bus. So I'm just gonna we can just leave it there. I'm just gonna remove now the system bus, as our end goal is to build this. So this is the birthday card app that we would want to build. So we have a text. just zoom back a little bit here. Yes, so we have this text which is happy birthday, and so we actually have two texts: happy birthday text, which is a birthday teams, and from Zuri. Now, if just zoom it a little bit closer, this should tell you we need to add two text composables within our function. So here we've said we need to say happy birthday teams. So if you look at this preview here, we only have one text, but we need to duplicate this. We need to have two texts here. So if you copy this and enter here and say from Zuri, let's see what happens. You see that we already have an overlapping behavior, so which is a very bad user experience. So we are not able to see exactly what is happening here. But if you go back to what we are earlier said, is we have containers that allows us to position our composables so that it doesn't overlap. And here we do have the column, the row, and the text. So if you were to give in a column, so the column will align the children, which we usually have the parent-children relationship. So the parent as the container and the children as the composables. So it will align its children vertically. And for the row, it's going to align the children horizontally. For the box, it's going to stack them. This is what exactly has happened here. So the box has just placed the children on top of each other, so which are the composables. So if you want to place this in order, so remember our text text in text of type string. So if you don't specify by default, this, if you move your mouse here, Compose will tell you that this is a text. So we can say text equal to, let's just make it a little bit cleaner. So add this text to another line. So text equal to, then from Zuri. So if you have not changed anything, we just made it look amazing. So if we now double click on this and then just get this not this one here, the yellow one. So you can see we can surround it with a widget. So just surround. Let's surround it with a column. So let's see what will happen. So remember, this column starts here. The body is here. So we need all the children inside the column. So we're just going to move this up. So you can cut and paste it here. As you can see now, we have happy birthday teams from Zuri. It's now aligned. This is what the column will do. It's going to align its children from top to bottom. And then if we change this now to a row, just type in a row. Okay, do it this way. So it's giving me an error. So we have not imported this. So I'm just going to place the mouse here, Option Enter, and then going to import this. Or what you can alternatively do is, yes, so you just move your cursor near this, then click on Import, and then select the row. You can now just see what has really happened. So we have now our happy birthday as the first element, composable element, and from Zuri as the last element. So this one stacks its children horizontally. So for a box, let's also just try and see what the box can do. You see now by default, box stacks its children on top of each other. This is what we don't want. And if you look at the design, it says we need to place this one to come, happy birthday text to come first, and then from Zuri to come next. So we will now maintain the column behavior. The column behavior. You see now we have happy birthday teams from Zuri. Now the next thing would be we need to add some text. We can spice it up a little bit, so we can increase the font for this. And remember, we talked about a font size, where we were talking about the scalable pixels, that is SP. So for anything to do with related to text and asked to do with size, we will be using a parameter called font size. So you can add a comma and then just type in font size. Compose is as simple as that. So we can have a size of, let's just start with 40. and then its measurement unit as SP. As you can see now, the text is way bigger, so we can make it to 100. So it's already yes, so it's still a column, but for our text, it's overlapping because of something called line height. So the line height for these will only wrap its height. So that means anything beyond that will be stacked on top of each other to look like it's laying on a box. So to solve this, we need to increase the line heights. Just type in line height. We can make it a little bit more than 100 at 116 .sp. You can also see our birthday text is really coming up. Okay, so we now have happy birthday Teams, then from Zuri. Now the next thing we can also do is to spice these texts of ours. So we can a little bit increase the font size. Font size, we can make it 36.sp. Yeah, you can now see we have from Zuri. Now let's run this and see how is our application looking so far. So as that builds, we could also just still get a preview. We can also still get a preview of this from the preview. So so we can just say show system UI to true, and then fit in. So this is ideally what we expect our app to look like, which exactly is looking like on the emulator. So the next thing would be just a little bit. So the next thing would be if you look at how we were defining our functions, we talked about passing in parameters and when calling the function, we can now add the arguments we want. That's a good coding practice as Android engineer. So we're going to say we want to extract this. Also, we want to extract this. So we can say here, we can have a message, and remember our message is of type string. So you can now say, replace this with message. And then from, we can just say, we also add another one from of type string, then add a comma. And then I'm going to replace this and say this one is from. Now, if you move here, you see now it's complaining and saying it's no value passed for message and from. So we need to pass these arguments. We can say now our message is, you can say happy birthday Teams. And then we need to pass in from, it's from. And then you're gonna say from Zuri. Also, you can see now our text here is complaining, so we need to do the same. So I'm just gonna add another line here and say we have message of type happy birthday Teams. Then we have from. Then you can now say from Zuri. So if you look at this, we are repeating the same thing because this one is just for us to see how the final app will look like. And then this one is, I remember we said set content and in onCreate is the entry point of the application. So without specifying those arguments here, our application will not be the same as the preview. So let's run and see if there's any change. So we expect that nothing is changing from the UI. Yes. Now, for this, remember again, in our app, it's actually, the elements are centered here. So if you look at the application, it's at the center, and then this, the from text is aligned towards the end. So in Compose again, we have something called arrangement. So in a column, you can arrange the composable from top, center, and bottom. and that is passed here as a parameter for your column. So let's see what happens if we do so. So we're going to say vertical arrangement is arrangement.center. Yeah, so let's run our app and then see what is going to happen. So far nothing is it's happening here. I will introduce you to something called so just a second. So I will introduce something called a modifier, which we had already mentioned that the modifier will help us align or will help us improve the look and feel of how our composables should be. So we will be using the modifier to do to make sure that if our column needs to occupy the entire screen, we can say that should be fill max size. If we need it to occupy the entire width, we can say fill max width. If we need it to occupy the entire height, we can just say fill max height. So for our column here, what we're going to do here is we're going to say, we're going to introduce something small here. Just on top of this, we can have modifier equal to modifier dot fill max size. Just add a comma there. So if you now see the text is moving towards the center because we've said, hey, this column should take the entire screen, and we need to position these children at the center. So that's why it's at the center. If we need to move them to the end, let's see what will happen. Top to actually bottom. You see everything moves to the bottom. If we need to move them to top, everything moves to top. Now we need to maintain them at the center. So that is working as expected. Now back to our design. So you see we have some spacing here, spacing there around. So we also have some spacing here. So we talked about padding. Text needs to move to the end. So we will use a modifier to move it. So we're going to say modifier equal to modifier dot align. So we're going to take this horizontal alignment. Then we're going to say text alignment. Then we're going to say alignment dot end. So you can now see our text alignment is moving to the end. But if you go back to our design, there's some space here and space at the top. So we need to add some spacing. So be careful. Better practices. We need to move this to a new line. So we can also add another one called padding. So we remember we talked about padding as adding space between the children or between composables. So we need to add space at the end here. We need to add it at the top, also bottom and the start. So we need to say padding of, we can do 16. So remember we said padding text in dependency, the density dependency pixel as their SI unit. And for font sizes for the text and everything, text in the scalable pixel, that is SP as the unit of measurement. As you can see, the app is coming well along. Yes, so the other thing will be, we also need to align this text to the center. We've aligned this to the end. We need to also move this text to the center. So we're gonna say text alignment is text alignment dot center. As you can see now, the text has been centered here. So I think we're almost there. So we can run our application and see how far we are. Yeah, and it looks like we are done. Yeah, so there are better improvements that we can do about this, but I'm just going to just introduce you something how we can create. So if you create this, so if you over your mouse here, it says it's never used. And we are calling this modifier here for the column to fill the entire max size. So we can pass the modifier here and then come and call it on the main entry point of the app. So we can do this. So we can just say modifier equal to, we pass in the modifier. And then if you go to our greeting text, remember it was expecting a modifier. And we said we needed to add padding to our, to pass in the inner padding. So we can as well chain this one. So we can chain another parameter for this and say fill max size. So this shouldn't change anything, but it's just a good practice. So if you want to leave it as it was, you can actually leave it as it was. Yes, and we are done for this part. So the next one is we would want to add an image, the happy birthday image to our application. So we want to advance this happy birthday card of ours. So we want to add an image. So with Compose, just like a text composable, we have an image composable. Now, the good thing about the image is we have something called TalkBack in Android. So for those who are differently able and they're not able to read to see the image, they could use the content description. Sometimes you would just get to hear, or the Android system automatically tells you this is an image or the name of what graphics you're seeing on your phone. So we will be introducing another function just to make sure we can display the image. So I'm going to create another composable function here. So another great shortcut of creating the composables here is just type in cmp comp and tap enter, press enter. So this will automatically create the declare for your function, a composable function. So for you, it's just to give in the function name. So for example, greeting image. Now for this greeting image, I would still want to pass in the message and the from. So I'm going to say add a message parameter here, just paste message of type string. And again, I would want to add from of type string. So I would call this, I will assign this to this greeting text. So I don't want to change how the layout is. So this is where we talked about composable functions. So you can call a composable function inside a composable function. So first things is we want to first add the image, and then we will display this greeting image now as our preview. So I'm going to copy this, just going to open our preview, and then I'm going to switch that to now our greeting image. So we're going to say we want to add an image here. So image, so we want to take one that has the painter resource. So of course we could just say create an image here, well, image, and assign it to the drawable resource. So we will be storing our assets inside the resources folder and then inside the drawable. So if you look at what is inside the drawable, you see we have these XML preview for the images. But I've on the description, there's a link where you can download directly the image where we want to display. So if you go to our app, so this should be the end goal of our application. So we have the image behind the text of this. So in short, we are stacking, and we talked about using box to stack elements. So this is what we will be using. And for the images, so if you want to directly access this repo, you can just go to the branch here and then just search birthday, and then you will see the birthday image. So you can go to the resources, you can go to the app, and then go to sources, main, go to resources, and inside drawable, you will see the birthday card screenshot, which you can not this one, but I think I uploaded one with no dependency pixels, this one, yes, which you can use it in your application. So this is the image you would want to download. Just go to download. Yeah, so back to the main here. Yes, back to here. So we want to see, so we want to add this image. So to do that in Android Studio, just let's pause a little bit on this. Just go to the resources manager. So if you go to your left here, you should be able to see resources. Go to add, and then import drawable. So we want to import that image. So I think I'd already downloaded it. the Android party image. Then click open. Now, sometimes we have, actually, we do have different kind of fonts with different kind of pixels. So some will scale up, some will scale down. So depending on your phone, the image will appear differently depending on the pixel density of your phone. So for our case, we want to just say we don't want to scale anything. So I'm going to select under the qualifiers type is density and say I don't want my my image to scale depending on the Android operating system. So I just want it to have a 0 density. So click on next. Then the image, of course. So you will notice that inside drawable, you will have this folder called no DPI, no dependency pixel import. So if you now switch back to your files here and then go to drawable, you can see now we do have the image. So sometimes you might not want to go all through that process. So what you can do is just go locate your files. For example, in my downloads, I know, let's say, this is the image I want to import. So I'll just drag it and make sure I've dragged it inside the drawable. So it's going to ask me that, and then I will just say refactor. So that's another shortcut of moving that image to your Android Studio. So I'm just going to delete this because we don't need to use it now. Given that we now have the image here, so if you hover your mouse here on the image, okay, let's first make it work. So the image takes in the content descriptions, where this allows talkback for Google. It describes the image or what that image is all about. So for this, we're going to use the Android R class. So the R class allows us to locate where the image exactly is. So it's just like getting to identify that image location, or giving that specific, giving this variable the specific ID to this image. So for example, you can say val image, say it's a painter resource. Then we use the R class dot ID, R class dot drawable dot the Android party. And then here we can now come and say painter equal to the image and content description. For now, we can just say birthday image. So you can see it's already appearing here, but it's already abstracting. We are not able to see the other text. So this is a good way of defining your image, but I would prefer, instead of creating a variable to store this image, just call this directly inside your image composable. So we want to say painter resource R, the R dot drawable. So it's we are telling this one, we are telling you exactly where the image is, that Android party. Yes. So just move this a little bit here. Also our preview, just a little bit there. Now we can now call this greeting text inside our composable greeting image. So we're going to say greeting text, and then we want to pass in message as a message. I want to use the named arguments here, and then from as from. Now, if you notice something, if we do name our image, our variable name here, same as the argument name, we don't need to pass in. We don't need to use the named argument, so we can directly say message and then just from. Yes, as simple as that. Now, if you look at this, it's automatically having the happy birthday text on top of the image, because by default, a box is the container being used as the layout. So, but still, we will need to just say we need to have these composables all inside. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is inside the box body. So as you can see, we do have this now. So I'm just gonna do a refresh. Let's see. Yes. Now we're going to now say just copy this, and now we need to replace that and call in the greeting image here. So if we launch our app now, let's see how it's going to look like. Yeah, you can see we now have happy birthday teams and from Zuri. So we can make some little bit changes. So we can just, if you go to back to our image, we would want to uniformly scale this image so that it fills the entire screen. So with that, we will use something called content scale. So we are going to add another param here. So another argument here. We're going to say content scale is content scale dot crop. Yes, so you can now see it's filling the entire screen, but now focusing on the specific aspect ratio. So this one uniformly scales the aspect ratio. And the other thing would be we can reduce a little bit the tint color of this. So we can use something called alpha. So we can reduce the concentration of this one a little bit to 0.5. So we can say alpha is equal to 0.5 f. Yes, as you can see now, it's not more of saturated than before. So if we look at the difference now, if we now do run our app here, so let's see. Yes, correct. Now, as you can see, the contents here are not aligned at the center. So because we were saying here, our greeting text in modifier, and this modifier has not been applied here. So we need to pass the modifier. Just let's get the preview. And for this modifier, what we're trying to say here is we need to pass the, okay, actually not here. We need to pass in modifier for our box here, so that when we now go to where this image is called here, so modifier dot fill max size. So then now that we've removed the parent is no longer the column now. The parent is the greeting text only is for these two. We need to move it now to the center using the box. So we need to say modifier equal to modifier dot fill max size. And then we can also come here and say we need to add some small alignment here. So we're going to say alignment, content alignment is alignment dot center. Yes, as you can see now, we are able to align back our content to where they were before. So we can do a little bit of cleanup here. So we can say, instead of doing this, we can just remember we said we need to follow the best Android design patterns. So we can now pass in this modifier inside this box, and it's exactly what we are telling the same modifier to do here. So if we run this, we expect now everything is okay. Yeah, as you can see, our application is okay, and now we are successfully finished designing the text, the birthday card, and we've assigned, we've now added an image. So if you probably want to play around, so you can just say, instead of this being moving here, you can move it to the center, move it to the start. So you just play here with content alignment, just play around with the application. So the last thing before we end is we need to follow the Android best practices. So if you look at this, we do have a folder here. I want you to pay attention here. So we do have the drawable where we store our assets like images and everything else. And if you scroll here, we do have colors where if you want to change the color, everything sits here. This is where they are defined. And again, if you go back here, you're able to see something called resources that is storing strings. So in the UI, what we've actually done is something called add coding. So just like fetching the image here, so we are saying r.drawable Android party. So this redirects us to where this image is. So for our text strings, it's a good practice to export them to strings, and automatically Android Studio helps you with that. So if you click on any of your string and move to this cursor here, it says extract to string. So just click on that and then click OK. So as you can see now, we are referencing using string resource, and we're saying it's found in rn string and to the birthday image. If you now go back here to this, you can see now we have the birthday image with this kind of text. So same thing for the other text. So we can say happy birthday teams, just click on it, extract resources, then extract that. Again, same thing from Zuri, just go here, extract resource, extract which other one are we using? So for this one now, you can say string resource r dot string dot happy birthday teams, and then also from Zuri we can say string resource r dot string dot from Zuri. So if you now go here, you can see we now have this here. So if you notice, we have the name, so that's the unique identifier, and then we now have the actual text here. So that is how you extract your string resources, your text values to string resources. So that is it. So I will see you in the next video.